is SportsCenter.
My name is Ross Schneider, and this is Andrew Goldberg, here to bring you the latest and greatest in the news. Today we will be commemorating the past through our famous Top 10 and Not Top 10. This year's featured decade,
the 70s. These lists will encompass the entire decade and it highlights the bad with the good and everything in between. Ross, are you ready?
Let's get it started.
We have the Not Top 10. Checking in at number 10, the 27 Club. Starting with the Rolling Stones' own Brian Jones, the 27 Club is comprised of famous music artists that have all met their fate at age 27. This list includes such figures as guitar legend Jimi Hendrix, singer Janis Joplin, The Doors frontman Jim Morrison, and many more, even reaching to modern music with Kurt Cobain and Amy Winehouse. It is a strange occurrence that continues to be mourned by music enthusiasts across the globe.
Number 9, we had the 1972 Munich Massacre at the Olympic Games. With these games, Germany was trying to rehabilitate its global image, hindered by World War II and their last Olympic Games in Berlin, which Hitler used to popularize himself. In the second week of action, members of Black September, a Palestinian anti-Israel organization, snuck into the Olympic Village and took 11 Israeli athletes and coaches hostage. Eventually, 5 of the terrorists were killed and 3 captured. The organization was angered by Israel's occupation of West Bank and Gaza. The assassination campaign against the Munich terrorists broadened into a campaign against other high-level Palestinian militants.
At number 8, we have Jimmy Carter and the recession. Jimmy Carter, the 39th President of the United States, took over after Nixon and after short-lived presidency of Gerald Ford. Seen as an average American, Carter was originally a peanut farmer. Carter's administration faced a lack of direction in government and couldn't get legislation passed in Congress. Jimmy Carter was seen as the most unpopular president of the century by many, not due to his lack of expertise and knowledge, but to his indecisiveness and inability to lead America. The back end of his presidency was highlighted by the Malay speech, in which he indicated that the government did not have all the answers to the economic woes of the late 1970s, all but spelling the hopelessness of his administration. Although he did have many achievements environmentally, such as the Toxic Substances Control Act of 1976, inflation increased 10% and saw the economy depreciate, mostly due to the next thing on our list.
And that would be OPEC. OPEC, or the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, formed in 1960 and had control over most of the oil imported into the U.S. by the 70s. In response to the Yom Kippur War, in which the U.S. had supplied resources to Israel, an enemy to Syria and Egypt who invaded Israeli lands, OPEC enforced an embargo on their oil. The U.S. economy suffered greatly as daily shipments of oil from the Middle East dropped from 1.2 million barrels to 19,000 barrels, causing a massive recession paired with inflation.
Next on our list of not top 10, we hit the fall of Saigon during the Vietnam War at number 6. On April 30th, 1975, North Vietnamese forces under Ho Chi Minh captured the South Vietnamese capital of Saigon, effectively ending conflict in the state and causing a U.S. evacuation. U.S. forces had fought against communist subversion but had seemingly failed to do so with success. Early, on April 29th of the same year, the last 2 U.S. servicemen died in an artillery shelling before the main attack on Saigon, which was renamed to Ho Chi Minh City after its new leader. This destroyed U.S. morale and increased tensions domestically on whether or not the war was ethical.
The Iranian hostage crisis is an event that stands out. On November 4, 1979, Iranian forces detained and held 52 American embassy workers for what turned out to be 444 days. The roots of this event lay within American reinstallation of a new Shah in Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Pahlavi eventually resigned due to his policy of Western influence on Iran and the country's rejection of it, which paved the way for Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Dubbed the Great Satan, the U.S. was now a black sheep in the eyes of Iran, and relations were severely hindered for years to come.
The famous Watergate scandal and Nixon's trials and tribulations come in at number 4. Plagued by paranoia during his presidency, Nixon was keen to install surveillance of the White House and collect any information he could on the opposing party. The Committee to Re-elect the President, or CREEP as it was called by his opponents, focused around domestic warfare against political opponents to damage their policies. It was not this, though, that got Nixon impeached, but his efforts to cover up the scandal that proved the most controversial. Nixon had taped his conversations with his chief of staff, H.R. Heldman, and in the smoking gun tape had revealed plans to suppress a government investigation of the scandal. This led many Americans to further question the legitimacy of U.S. elected officials and the corrupt nature of politics at the time.
Alright, now we're in the home stretch. At number 3 reached the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was one plagued by bad decisions and unpopularity from American citizens everywhere. The efforts to save South Vietnam from the totalitarian communist government headed by Ho Chi Minh wasn't really about the Vietnamese people at all, but the U.S. fear of Asian subversion and the domino effect of said communism. After creating means to enter conflict with North Vietnam via the Gulf of Tonkin Incident and the Tonkin Resolution, the government then gave its citizens the idea that the war would be quick and easy. That is, until the Tet Offensive, in which the Northern Viet Minh forces and the Southern Viet Cong forces invades numerous cities under U.S. control. America was keeping the people from choosing their own form of government in which they would have gone with Minh, creating a hypocritical image and hindering the U.S. then strong national reputation. President Nixon issued a policy of Vietnamization to get the U.S. forces out of the war, and finally reached an agreement in 1973. South Vietnam surrendered to North Vietnam in 1975. This led to the War Powers Act in 1973, requiring the president to receive explicit congressional approval before committing American forces overseas. Many escaped the mandated draft by leaving to Canada and were pardoned by Jimmy Carter on January 21, 1977. And the Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara issued an apology on his behalf in the 1995 memoir In Retrospect.
Number 2 leads us to the Cambodian Genocide. The Cambodian Genocide was a horrible tragedy committed by the communist Khmer Rouge between 1975 and 1979 that allowed for the mass killing of 1.5 to 3 million Cambodians in an effort to cleanse the country and bring back the mythic past of an agrarian society based off the principles of Maoism and Stalinism. An estimated 25% of the population died from malnutrition and forced labor, and leader Pol Pot denied the actual events and reasoning behind his actions before he committed suicide in 1998. Many leaders of the Khmer regime have been put on trial for the crimes against humanity, and it is now illegal to deny the occurrence of the genocide in Cambodia as of 2013. The genocide was halted in 1979 with the Vietnamese invasion of Cambodia.
Which you've all been waiting for. Coming in at number 1 for the not top 10 from the 1970s, we have disco. Disco was a music revolution in the 1970s that was a blend of many different styles of dance, such as the samba, tango, foxtrot, and swing. Short for discotheque, disco music and dance created a culture centered around new dance clubs with a crystal ball hanging from the ceiling, all with elaborate decorations to go along with the music. The most notable dance club, New York Studio 54, attracted many famous icons across America until the fall of disco in the late 70s. Disco Demolition Night at Comiskey Park in Chicago led to mass hatred and frustration at disco, with the fad being ousted by a different stranger fad of cowboy swing. At its height, disco had been accessible to everyone, with the 1978 romanticism in the form of Saturday Night Fever, starring John Travolta. Many look back at disco with nostalgia, but it's fair to say that it was never meant to stay long.
Coming right up after this, ESPN's Top 10 of the 70s. But before that, we're going to take a commercial break.
Icebird, Icebird, you're such a nice bird. Let's make an iceberg treat. Scrape in the ice to fill the cup. Then add the flavor, eat it up. Yum, 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 yum. How about another one? Icebird, you're a lot of fun.
Icebird with 5 flavor packets. Icebird, new from Kenner.
Next time you're having a hamburger and a cola, don't do it. Undo it. Undo your cola habit with the Uncola, an embracing fresh flavor that enhances any meal and really makes a great change of taste. All of which means you'll enjoy your favorite foods more than ever with 7-Up as a change of course. Isn't it refreshing? Now you can have your meal and undo it too.
Every day is Saturday night when you're looking right. Just pants. Just pants. We know you'll be satisfied when you step inside. Just pants. Just pants. 'Cause for you, in every race, you're coming for a change. Just pants. Just pants.
Next up, ESPN's Top 10 of the 70s.
To start off the top 10, we have the treaties made with Russia. These treaties, such as the South Atlantic Arms Limitation Treaty, or SALT, were a necessary means to prevent large-scale mass destruction of people by means of war. SALT was separated into two parts, SALT I and SALT II. SALT I limited the number of intercontinental and submarine launched missiles put into production by the world's superpowers. The SALT II treaty banned new missile programs, so both sides had to limit missile development. These treaties also included the Helsinki Accords. These were used to improve relations with communists and the West.
We have the continued success of science and the new discoveries made. On December 17, 1971, the U.S. launched Apollo 17, its last landing of humans on the moon. This was the sixth Apollo lunar landing. This mission consisted of a three-man crew, Eugene Cernan, Ronald Evans, and Harold Smith. Although with the continued exploration of the moon, NASA launched two Mars Viking probes in 1976, along with the twin Voyager probes that were launched to reach deep space, each carrying a golden record with images and sounds of Earth. The first test tube baby was conceived in 1978 in England, along with the discovery of oncogenes in 1970 that helped to understand cancer better. In 1974, paleontologist Donald Johanson found the 3.2 million-year-old hominid named Lucy. All this new and exciting progress in science was just the beginning for future discoveries.
Okay, up next at number 8, we have the Roe v. Wade decision of 1973. Throughout the 70s, women have been trying to get the basic rights that they felt they deserved. One of these rights included the right to have an abortion. The decision of Roe v. Wade was a result of a woman under the alias of Jane Rose, who was looking for a legal abortion. She, along with a few lawyers, filed a suit against District Attorney Henry Wade. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court. Although most of the country at this time was against abortion, the decision was in favor of Roe, and the Supreme Court stated that under the Ninth Amendment, the right to abortion cannot be denied to a woman.
Next up in number 7, we have the development of technology in the 70s. The 70s were headlined by many major discoveries on the technology side of innovations, as many new things were being developed computer-wise and more. The first general microprocessor, the Intel 4004, was released in November of 1971, which paved the way for modern computing. The world's first supercomputer emerged in the form of Cray 1, which could process 230 million calculations per second. Atari released Pong in 1972 as the home version for the popular arcade game, along with the Atari 26,000 home gaming system in 1977. Computer giants Microsoft and Apple were both founded in 1975 by Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, respectively. The highly popular Walkman, a portable music device, was made by Sony in 1979. All of these innovations would lead to future success with technology, and if not for the discoveries and inventions then, technology would not be where it is today.
Checking in at number 6, we have historic sports events. With the increased availability of the TV, sports were able to be broadcasted with much ease, which led to an increase in viewership around the globe. The 70s saw the last 3 Triple Crown winners of horse racing, a feat hard to accomplish in itself and that has not been seen since. Hank Aaron of the Atlanta Braves bested legendary Yankee Babe Ruth's home run record of 714 by clobbering number 715 in 1974. Football also garnered more viewers through ABC's Monday Night Football, which began airing in 1970. Roberto Clemente was the first Latin American player to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1973. U.S. swimmer Mark Spitz received 7 gold medals in the 1972 Olympics, a record not broken until Michael Phelps in 2008.
Number 5, we have the expansion of TV shows. The 1970s saw a new, wide variety of TV shows airing, including talk shows, sitcoms, and more. NBC's wildly successful sketch comedy, Saturday Night Live, premiered in October of 1975, finding new and exciting ways to capture audiences with its unique blend of musical guests and humor. Game shows were also popularized as Family Feud, Wheel of Fortune, and The Price is Right filled the homes of many viewers. The family sitcom originated within the 1970s, like shows such as The Brady Bunch, All in the Family, along with other iconic series. MASH, a show about doctors during the Korean War, was created as well. Viewers were treated to a new horizon of television options, and most shows went on to become staples for syndication in the future.
Number 4 reveals us to the music of the 70s. Besides the looming white elephant of disco, there was a revival of rock in the 1970s that set the cornerstone for all music to come. Starting in the late 60s and really peaking in the early 70s were iconic rock groups such as The Who and Led Zeppelin. Groups like AC/DC, Styx, Black Sabbath, and Van Halen all headlined the supergroups of the decade. Along with hard rock, the 70s also saw more success in the era of soft and southern rock, with people like Rod Stewart, Billy Joel, and bands like the Eagles, Fleetwood Mac, and Chicago. Since the Beatles had broken up in 1970, psychedelic rock was on the decline, while newer genres took the stage. R&B artists such as Stevie Wonder and the Jackson 5 became popular, creating inspiration for generations to come.
Approaching the end of the list, with movies checking in at number 3. It seems as though entertainment in general was kicked up a notch in the 70s, as new cinema giants were released across America. The first of the Star Wars trilogy hit the screens in 1977, following the massively successful Jaws of 1975 and 1973's The Exorcist. Superman was brought to the big screen in 1978, and in 1972, the famed Godfather was released. James Bond had continued success with many releases in the 70s, such as Diamonds Are Forever. This decade saw the beginning of major blockbuster movies and really set the stage for the future of the film market.
In at number 2, we have the LGBT rights movement of the 70s. Angered by the Stonewall riots of 1969, LGBT men and women started moving towards activism to achieve equal treatment within the communities. After much scrutiny, the American Psychiatric Association lifted homosexuality from its list of mental disorders in 1973. LGBT men and women became encouraged to start coming out and really embrace their sexuality. They wanted to end job discrimination and really increase visibility overall. In politics, Harvey Milk became the first openly gay elected official in 1978, but was assassinated along with the mayor of San Francisco within 11 months of assuming office. The first gay pride parade was held in 1970 in New York in remembrance of the one-year anniversary of the Stonewall riots. The LGBT movement of the 70s created a foundation for gay and lesbian rights that continues to be fought for today.
And here we are at number 1, the end of the 70s. Yes, it seems weird at first after we listed the top 9 things about the 70s, but in reality, it wasn't the best decade to live in. Registering a war with no real purpose, a stagnant economy plagued by inflation, and no real direction or top achievement to marvel at. Sure, the 70s brought many good things, but people will and have remembered the 70s like they remembered their middle school years. They'd rather just forget them. The Me decade, as it is known, was a vortex of post-war complications that led to a new and more modernized America. Thanks for viewing us on ESPN's Not and Top 10 lists, coming at you from ESPN Studios, live in my basement. I'm Andrew Goldberg.
And I'm Ross Schneider.
Good night.
This is SportsCenter.